most contractors are booked bloody solid. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe a quote should have a validity period, and it shouldn't be very long, to be honest with you. I say from the time you send the quote, it's valid for 14 days because that's how fast prices are changing right now. During the presentation of a contract and the scope of work is like a rough schedule of values on time, because I think as we've talked about before, time is almost as more important than money with the investors. And some situations where you got to be wary of is that if you're going to start supplying material because customers have the conception that that's going to save you money, what happens if that material is broken? Who's going to spend their time returning it? What if that material is defective and we installed it? Who's going to pay to reinstall it, right? So this is why I highly recommend having the contractor supply most things, because if it breaks, they got to replace it.
What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and we're back with John from BlackJack Contracting. Hey, John, how's it going?
Good, brother. Nice to see you again.
Good seeing you as well. And it sounds like business is still busy.
Yes, sir.
All right. And so today we're going to be talking about the importance of a true scope of work. And I think this is one of the big things that separates the pretend contractors from the real contractors, is like having a real scope of work as well. For an investor, this is the sort of thing that, at least from my perspective, gives you peace of mind that we're actually talking the same language. So do you mind breaking down for people, John, just what is it exactly when people are talking about scope of work? What does that mean? What should they be looking for?
Sure. So I think this is what causes a lot of issues down the road during these renovations when the arguments start happening. So, I mean, the first thing I'm going to recommend is before you even meet contractors, that you should develop your own scope of work, so that when you get down to the meeting, you're not wasting time trying to figure out what we want and what you want, because to be honest with you, if I don't know what you want, I'm just guessing, right? And that's where, especially things like, all of a sudden the price jumps and you wonder why. Well, I assume that you wanted this, 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 and this. And then when, if you're meeting a bunch of contractors to get multiple bids, like most people should, unless you got your guy that you trust, if you do not just have that clear scope of work that you can compare apples to apples instead of apples to oranges, that way, why is this guy $10,000 more than this guy? This is why, and this is where most of the issues come on. So this is why I wanted to talk about this today and say especially that I recommend highly, first you do your own, then you work with the contractors, and then you can compare, which we'll talk about shortly.
Mm-hmm. And so when kind of like building out our own, how would you recommend people think about it? Should I think about it room by room? Am I thinking it kind of project by project or stages,
Yeah, so I think when you say, let's just talk about a flip for a second, or, a burr, which, basically going to be same scope of work, maybe a less little fancy, is just like, you want to know exactly what your overall picture for the house is, and that's going to be where you start, know what you want. So you know that you want new floors, a new kitchen, a new backsplash, a new kitchen, and then we can talk about the nitty gritties. Now, I'm not expecting you to know every step to the process, so that's kind of the contractor's job. So, if you need a new kitchen, well, that means you need plumbing, that means you need electrical, HVAC, tile, backsplash. There's a whole bunch of things. That's not your job to know.
Mm-hmm.
But if you know that you want a new kitchen, you have an overall vision for your kitchen, then we can produce the scope of work that's going to match your vision. So that's why I'm saying is you don't need to be an expert and know, okay, well, I need 10 2x4s to do this. No, it just, okay, I want this wall open from this point to this point. Okay, then it's kind of our job just to say, okay, well, you're going to need this, 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 and this. But if we don't know, I don't know if I want the wall open 6 feet or 8 feet or completely gone, there's a big difference in process,
Mm-hmm.
a big difference in, structure, materials, labor. And so when you see a price from two contractors, one price 6 feet, one price the whole opening, it's going to be a big difference. So that's why I'm saying it's not so much the nitty gritty, it's the overall vision and what you want here. So if you don't know what you want, it's okay to, brainstorm with a contractor, just make sure by the end of it, you have a clear vision for the project. That way, when you are getting your bids, you know that you're comparing apples to apples, and when I'm giving you a price, it should be enough detail on that to know that's exactly what you're going to get, so that when you're getting your two bids, it is apples to apples, apples to apples.
Mm-hmm. And then let's kind of chat about finishes, because that obviously impacts the cost as well. Sure. Do you recommend, should people come with, an HGTV magazine and just kind of point, and this is what I want, how should we determine what sort of finishes, or how should they communicate with a contractor in regards to the quality or degree of finishes they want.
Sure, absolutely. So, I mean, obviously, if I'm coming to your personal house, which I don't really do anyways, but if I was, that the finishes are going to be a lot different than we're speaking about a rental property. And that's why, there is contractors out there that are investor focused like me, that we know, okay, putting hardwood floors in a rental property is a really bad idea, and it's going to cost you way too much and get destroyed. So that you want nice new floors. Well, I'm going to suggest you vinyl every day of the week, because one, it's great price, and two, it's very durable. So if you have color samples, that's great. Now, the color samples aren't so important, but at least the quality of product you're going to get. Same with kitchens. Like, typically we use IKEA kitchens for rentals. Maybe that's not good enough for you. You want to use something that's hand built or something. Okay, cool. I'm going to tell you about the advantages and disadvantages of both. But it doesn't have to be precise. Now, if you do have, some images of something that's going to, this is exactly what I want to look at, that's perfect. That's where, again, working with investor-focused people are great, because most of the time we're going to try to talk you out of things before we're going to try to talk you into things, because, again, most people, all they care about is the final product and the pretty thing. I'm going to try to make sure you understand the importance of what's behind the walls. That's my job, and that's where I come from. Again, so that's just like scope of work. If you have samples, that's awesome. If you have a vision, that's awesome. You have pictures, that's awesome. That's going to definitely speed up the process.
Yeah, really appreciate that. And then in regards to, actually looking at what's all included in the scope of work, I guess, are there some common areas where there's misconceptions or disconnects, or any recommendations on pitfalls to avoid there? So, I guess a couple of the thoughts that come to my mind is, is it kind of broom swept condition when we finalize and you take it over? Or is this roughed in, just kind of breaking down, I guess, some of the common misconceptions maybe you see?
So, we provide, for just speaking for ourselves, we're kind of all in one. We do it from start to finish, and we we avoid jobs where they want to do in between nowadays, and that's just our choice because of the overall process. But if you're working with contractors, you want to make sure that, okay, say you're hiring for a burr, a suite, or anything. When I leave this place, is it ready to rent? Is it ready to refi? Do I need to do something after the fact? Is all the materials included? Is all the labor, subcontractors, is the permits, drawings, whatever you need, are they included? So a lot of guys, for some reason, just don't want to get involved with some of this stuff. So they say, well, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to supply this. And that's fine if you're willing to work with that. It just makes sure that it's clearly written what's included. See, what happens is some situations where you got to be wary of is that if you're going to start supplying material because customers have the conception that that's going to save you money, which I don't believe it does, especially if you value your time, because your time's worth more than saving 10 cents on a piece of lumber or whatever. You want to make sure that what happens if that material is broken? Who's going to spend their time returning it? What if that material is defective and we installed it? Who's going to pay to reinstall it, right? So this is why I highly recommend having the contractor supply most things, because if it breaks, they got to replace it. It's on them. But again, for the scope of work terms, that kind of stuff should be listed. If you are going to supply things, those situations like returns, reinstalls, broken, who covers that, whose time, all that stuff. That's why I highly recommend an all-in-one kind of experience. But again, back to the scope of work thing, that should be written. Are you supplying, installing, subcontractors, permits, drawings, what's in there? And it should be on paper.
Yeah, really appreciate you breaking that down for us. And then I think one area that I know I've seen in the past sometimes a disconnect occur is in regards to some of, I guess, maybe there are things that I consider kind of the finishes or the final touches, like appliances. That can actually make a really big swing if you thought that, I was getting everything 100% done for $120,000. And it turns out, well, actually, no, I need to go spend $5,000 on stainless steel appliances, or, right. I've got to buy the hood vent, I've got to buy the dishwasher, this, that, and the others. So I think it's just really important to understand, ask those questions of what will I be responsible for, right? What will I have to buy, or what will be in addition to what we've currently outlined here?
Yeah, 100%. And so my contract always says appliances excluded or appliances included. Now, if the appliances are excluded, is the install included? So most of the time, if customer
Yeah.
supply, we're installing, but it's got to be written down because, again, some contractors don't do that, and then that's going to leave you kind of frustrated. It's not even so much about money as in time and experience and blah, blah, blah. Is this an all-in-one product or not? So again, like just a simple note, appliances included and installed, or appliances not included but installed, or not included. And just, again, if it's written down and fair, at least everybody's on the same expectations. And that's why it's always good too, when you're, reviewing the proposal with the contractor, that you ask those type of questions. And if it's not written down, I recommend you have it changed to it is written down. Actually, I would say not recommend. I say it's mandatory, because otherwise, if this goes sour, you got proof.
Yeah, 100% agree. And then when we're talking about, the scope of work and things of that nature, should we also have some sort of document or outline in regards to what the process is around change orders or adjustments or out of scope aspects, and what kind of recommendations do you have for us on that?
So there should be definitely some sort of wording about that in the contract language. I mean, to me, I had we had a lawyer letter done, and it just says, okay, change orders do this. Now, the one thing about change orders as well is it's not so much money, but does it affect time? So, if a change order has been, presented to you, okay, it's going to cost me this much more. Okay, cool. But how much longer is going to take? So if you tell a client it's going to take 12 weeks to complete a project, but this is going to add a week, you don't communicate that, or that's not written down. Then all of a sudden that 12th week comes. It's like, why aren't you done? Well, you added this. Well, I didn't know it was going to take more time, right? That kind of stuff should be written down. Make sure that you're on the same page. So change orders nowadays should be something money and additional time added to the project, and that should be written on the change order document. Again, this is a big thing in the contracting world, because, and even for us, it's tough to keep track of it, but that's why we have the electronic systems, is that change orders should never be verbal, because where this is going. Change orders should have something on paper, and it, on top of, okay, it's $5,000 extra. Total contract is now. So, the grand total, is there any time? And that's, again, if, there is, older contractors that's paper based, that's cool. Just get something written down. This is included, this is included, and how much time it's going to take. Again, if you take this process, then this whole thing's going to go smooth, but most contractors are too busy, too lazy, or just don't have the systems around change orders. And that's what actually puts most contractors out of business, to tell you the honest truth. One of the number one effects is ineffective use of change orders. I purposely try to never have change orders on our project. We try to do it up front, but there always is something. I want to add a quartz counter. Okay, so then write it down. It's this much extra. Now that one's not going to affect the timelines. Okay, cool.
Yeah, really appreciate those insights, because again, as long as a person is just kind of thinking thoroughly through this process, I don't think it's complicated. It's just important to focus on the details and the descriptions behind what's occurring when we're talking about both the scope of work as well as any sort of change order or adjustment to our original plan.
Yeah, another thing that I'm starting to really see the value in is during the presentation of a contract and the scope of work, is like a rough schedule of values on time, because I think as we've talked about before, time is almost as more important than money with the investors, and just making sure, because a lot of people have no idea how long these projects take, and they'll say, you tell them it's going to take 12 to 16. Oh, I thought it was going to take 6 weeks. So it's something that you want to that has to be discussed, and I'd say roughly put on paper. I mean, especially during COVID times, guaranteeing timelines is out the window right now. But having a rough idea of timelines in that way, at least when delays happen, you can, okay, I know we said we're going to be done this week. It looks like it's going to be 2 weeks from now. At least people are understanding, right? This is crazy times. It's going to be our next video's discussion, but it's just something that should be at least documented, that it should be relatively in the first 3 weeks, we're going to do this, blah, blah, blah. And that's how your payment schedule should be tied anyways. It should be tied to milestones, never dates. So we're going to complete this, this, and this, next payment. We're going to complete this. That way, there's literally no arguments that can happen. Is this done? Yes, it is. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then kind of talking about the costs, and again, we'll get into it in a future video, the recent increase in costs that a a lot of people are experiencing. But, you know, should our scope of work or the quote we're receiving have kind of a timeline that's valid for, or kind of an expiration date? And are there common practices in that space?
Yeah, actually, it's something that's been coming up quite recently with other contractors. I know they're great contractors. They work in the same space thing, but they're actually going back to their customers and insisting that they pay for the increases, which I highly disagree with. That should be, if there's an agreement in place between you and I, that should be on paper, that if increases happen in material, we can go back to you. But if it isn't, I believe that's a firm quote, and that shouldn't change. That's the risk we take. I do believe a quote should have a validity period, and it shouldn't be very long, to be honest with you. I say from the time you send the quote, it's valid for 14 days, because that's how fast prices are changing right now. And if they accept in that time, okay, well, the contractor's locked into that price, they're locked into that price. So that's 100%. I agree that there should be some sort of timeline on that. It's a tough one right now, but you know, we're taking losses on certain things, and that's all you can do. But I don't believe in going back to them and saying, oh, my 2x4 went up $1, I have to charge you more, because to me it's an investment. It's all been planned out. Dollars are dollars. So, but you got to be careful with that, because some other people don't believe that way, and it's end up coming back to haunt people.
And then I know we've talked about this in the past in regards to kind of like payment schedules and holdbacks and things of that nature, but let's just touch upon that real high level, because again, I think that's such an important subject matter. So do you mind just kind of chatting about, you know, the issues or the risk of paying a contractor fully up front or before the work's 100% done?
Sure. Yeah. Never, ever do that. I don't care if it's me or if you trust me, don't ever pay someone up front. I would probably say some contractors want like 50%, and I do that on small jobs, like $5,000 and less, it's 50-50. But on big jobs, you know, I would never go more than 20%, I don't think. And then make sure that no matter what, there's at least 10% at the end, make the juice worth the squeeze. It's human nature. If I can go grab, it's a big chunk there, or finish this job and only going to get paid 10%, whatever, you know what I mean? It's just human nature. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that you want to avoid that. So just spread out, make sure the payment is scheduled and fair. And then if you've agreed to that payment schedule, stick to the payment schedule. And if you do, projects should go pretty smoothly, but just make sure there's a great chunk at the end and it's evenly distributed. And I've never had someone complain about mine, because I think it's about as fair as it gets. But I mean, there is methodology in the contracting world that we should be more fast and often and take as much as you can. And I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah, really appreciate you sharing your, perspectives into this, John. And so just before we wrap up this video, I'd love to just kind of remind people, I know business is busy these days. So what sort of timelines should people expect if, say, they want to reach out to you specifically? Like, let's say I'm thinking about doing a basement conversion or want to do an income suite.
Sure.
I'm closing on the property in August, September. Should I be contacting you how many months in advance, or what sort of timelines do you recommend?
So I'm built differently than most guys. We can do pretty much everything on 2 weeks notice, but we're one of the only ones that do it that way. So if you're not in my area, if you're not going to work with me, don't use this method. So we want to be involved as soon as possible in the process, even if it's 4 months out, so that, we can help you plan correctly, make sure you get the right drawings, make sure we're all on the same page. And then by the time you close, we're ready to go. We can, by the time we, go through the quoting process, which could take a week or two, and, get all the details figured out, we need about 2 weeks to get started. So, I mean, that could be a month right there. So, it's going to be at least a month process. But let's go outside of our company. Is most contractors are booked bloody solid. And I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. Sub trades are really busy right now. Builders are busy. People are doing everything to their homes. So getting the investment stuff done is going to take lengthy right now. So if you buy a house today, tomorrow you want to be meeting contractors, or at least discussing contractors, try to get on their schedules. again, even if it's a matter of putting a $500 deposit down to hold a spot for this, even though you haven't any refundable or whatever, just get on the guy's schedule, especially if he's a good one. No, that means you vetted this guy and you want to work with his people, not just some random guy. But you want to get on the schedules as soon as possible. Timeline, it's never been like this before. People are packed, especially right now because of the supply chain issues. Things are slower right now, so things aren't banging out like they used to. So you got to get on the board as soon as possible. Don't wait until a couple of weeks for a contractor, especially like basement suites, that kind of stuff. Day one, get them involved, especially that way they're right involved, and then they'll be ready to go on closing day. Flips and burrs, same thing. Obviously, it's not as detailed with the drawings and the permits and stuff like that, but it's still to get a good contractor right now is going to be a challenge. So you got the property, get them involved.
100% agree. And then just a reminder for the audience, in case this is maybe one of their first times listening to us chat. Right now, what regions and areas are you servicing with BlackJack Contracting, John?
Yeah, sure. So we're based out of Hamilton. We serve up the 401 to London right now, Sarnia. Is it Sarnia or no? Sorry, St. Thomas. We're not there. The other one yet. Then we go back down all the way through Niagara, Hamilton, Burlington, Brantford. Peterborough is getting going. Belleville's getting going. Sudbury's getting going.
Oh, wow. That's exciting.
Yeah. So
lots on the go.
Lots on the go. So it's pretty busy. I mean, we're just kind of, following the investor hotspots, working with some of our regular customers in these new areas to get going, and then we'll be off to the races.
That's awesome, John. And so if you guys are interested at home in working with John at BlackJack Contracting, we've got a link in the video description down below to all their contact information. And again, just really appreciate it, John. There's so many insights in every one of these videos, and I know the audience really gets value from them.
What is up, YouTube? Sorry to interrupt, but before you guys wrap up this video, I've got a quick announcement. We put together a survey where I'd love to get your input on your perspective on what other content should we shoot on this YouTube channel. I've literally made thousands of videos, talked for thousands of hours now about YouTube, and I'm just not always sure what to talk about next. Sometimes it feels like I'm just beating a dead horse, but I'd love to hear from you guys. What subjects should we go reapproach? What video should we remake? What subjects have we just completely ignored that, like, duh, we need to go make a video about that? Let us know, not in the comment section, but through this survey, and there'll be a link in the video description down below. Thanks, guys. I'll see you in the next video.